All right, so this is part two, and we're talking about how to address a murder question and a voluntary manslaughter question. So we are, we just finished the murder question, and we came to the conclusion that this was an unlawful killing, and there was, at least appears to be, malice aforethought. So our next question to address manslaughter is whether or not we're going to recognize those recognize malice based on these circumstances. And so I put a simple sentence in here, and I just said, because the killing was driven by the emotions of Shane, is the killing voluntary manslaughter? So I do what I always do after I ask a question like that is I'm going to define voluntary manslaughter. So voluntary manslaughter is the unlawful killing of one human being by another human being by another without malice aforethought. So we start the same way that we did with murder. You start at the top. You're going to start here with unlawful, right? You're going to start here with unlawful and answer this question first. Was it an unlawful killing? Right? So we're gonna answer that question first. Okay. And so because when we talked about murder, we've already really answered these questions. We're just going to do a real quick statement here and move on. So we've already established that the killing was unlawful when we talked about murder, and we already established it's the killing of one human being by another. So you don't have to spend a lot of time and answer the question a second time. You can simply state that, hey, as stated above, we've already established this is an unlawful killing of one human being by another. So um, you can just address those issues real quickly. But I'm addressing them first, right? I'm going right in order. Okay, so then the next part of this is it without malice? That's our next question. And I just put it in the form of a question, right? Was this killing without malice? Okay, so malice, and then I give you a definition of malice because when I ask a legal question like that, I'm going to define it. Malice is not recognized by the law if the killing was driven by a sudden quarrel or heat of passion, or the killing was the result of um, an unreasonable belief in the need to defend oneself or another with deadly force. This is not clearly it's not a question of having to unreasonably believe in defending oneself with deadly force, but I'm putting the entire definition in there. Okay, I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to go right to the issue. Was this a heat of passion killing? Right? So, in order for the law to recognize a heat of passion killing, because uh, 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 not all killings fall under this category. And I've tried so hard to emphasize this to you in the regular lecture. It's not about being angry. It's about the circumstances that put you in that position of anger, right? Or heat of passion. So in order for the law to recognize a heat of passion killing, it must be the type of event that would move a reasonable person to respond rashly and without due deliberation. In other words, to be driven by emotion, not by judgment. But it has to be, the key here is this right here. Let me highlight it for you. So it's not every event. It's only that type of event that you and I, right? It's an objective standard where a reasonable person would say, yeah, I could see where somebody could be so blinded by anger that they could take a life, right? Another way to do this when you're answering a question is make it personal. Ask yourself, is this the type of event where I think I could kill somebody? And that'll help you keep it in perspective. And you really have to think about, am I going to take a life, right? Okay. So here, so we asked the question, in order um, For the law to recognize a heat of passion killing, it must be the type of event that would move a person, a reasonable person, to respond rashly or without due deliberation. Okay, so you can approach it several different ways, but I'm just going to approach it in the most basic way so that you get an idea of how to deal with this. So we have Shane. Shane, okay, is driven to kill George because his lawn and flowers were damaged. Okay. So the question is this the type of event that would move a reasonable, keyword reasonable, person to respond rashly without due deliberation? Answer: no. No, it's not. Damaging your lawn does not would not make a reasonable person. So you just put damaging a person's lawn would not move a reasonable person to kill somebody. Right? Therefore, these events would not negate, or if you want to use another word, um, would not remove malice. Now, if you felt, let's say that this was killing your spouse, or that's the event. Someone killed my wife, or someone killed my children, or somebody seriously harmed my children. You would just simply say, would the fact that somebody molested my child, would that move a reasonable person to possibly kill somebody? And most people would say, okay, I could see it. It doesn't mean that they would. It doesn't mean that I necessarily would. But I could see a reasonable person not thinking about the consequences and actually taking a life. So you look at the circumstances and you just you give an answer based on reason. And I will tell you, for the final exam, it's going to be very clear. It's either going to be something like this, where it's very obvious that it's not a heat of passion killing, or it's going to be something that's very obvious. It was a heat of passion killing. If it is a heat of passion killing, then you have to ask them other questions like, was there a cooling off period? You always want to address the cooling off period. So then you would just end this by saying, you know, that voluntary manslaughter would not apply. Say therefore, Shane, took a life of another or killed another. Let's use the word killed because we're using Shane killed George. Better than that. Shane unlawfully killed George with malice. So let me just kind of recap for you. I got a few minutes here. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. So I follow the same pattern I do with any other crime I'm going to talk about. The first thing I do is I define the crime. Murder is defined as the unlawful killing of one human being by another with malice. And then I start at the top. First question I ask is, was this unlawful? Was it an unlawful killing? Then I go to, was it one human being by another human being? Oh, by another, right? And then my last question is going to be, was it with malice? And that's exactly how I handle it all the way through. Was there a killing? Unlawful killing. And then I define what an unlawful killing is, right? If it's not excusable, if it's not justifiable, it's unlawful. And I take each one I talk about justifiable first, then I talk about excusable. They don't have to be long, detailed answers, but it has to be to the point, right? Okay, so then I say it's not justifiable, I'm saying it's not excusable, and therefore I'm saying it's unlawful, right there. And then one human being by another, pretty straightforward. This really isn't a question about, did nature take the life or did a person take the life? Something of that nature. So then the big meat of it is there with malice? And I remember malice is established 4 different ways, right? So you have, I'll number them for you so you can see. So you have an intent to kill, you have an intent to cause grievous bodily injury, you have a reckless indifference for human life, and then you have the felony murder rule. Those are the only 4 ways that you can establish malice. And remember, malice is not about being evil. You can be a good person. You can be a priest, a nun, a monk, right? I mean, you can be any one of those things and more and still be charged with murder and still have malice. If you unlawfully take a life and it's found to be because you had an intent to kill, there's no other mitigating circumstances. If it falls under intent to kill, intent to cause grievous bodily injury, reckless indifference for human life, or the felony murder rule, you have malice. All right, and then I went through each one with you to show you. I start with number 1, right? Was there an intentional killing? Right there, 1. I just go right down the list. I don't even have to think about what the order I'm going in. 2, they all match. Notice that they all match. And then I answer each one of those, and it can be more than one. I would go through the list every time, and if it's not there, just say no, it's not there, and tell why. And then I even go to felony murder rule, even though I know it's not there. I'm just going to answer it anyway. Nope, doesn't apply. Okay, and then I say yes, there's malice, or at least it appears to be malice. But hey, because this is an emotional killing driven by emotion, let's look at voluntary manslaughter. Now I'm linking the 2 together, right? This is where I link up murder and voluntary manslaughter. And I just ask the question, because the killing was driven by the emotions of Shane, is the killing voluntary manslaughter? That's how you link the 2. And now you move on to manslaughter. You define it. I approach this just like I approached the murder question. All right, I hope this helps. Again, shoot me an email if you've got questions. I know I've been a little late and slow answering your emails. I've been trying to put the rest of the classes together, but I promise you today and tomorrow, I will be going through all of your emails, and I will be more diligent in answering your emails a little bit quicker and sooner than I have been in the past. All right, be safe.